I've been traveling on this line from Inverness to Kyle for over 40 years now, and every time I come, whether it's summer or winter or spring or autumn, I see something new, something different. I've seen a lot of changes on the line too, a change from steam to diesel. It's lost its restaurant car. You can't get anything to eat or drink on the train now. The observation coach has gone. A lot of people feel in a way that the line is running down, which is a great pity, because this is probably the most beautiful scenic line in Britain, if not in Europe. Just look at it.
I think it's the most beautiful line which I ever saw in my life.
The weather's just marvellous, and the scenery, as I say, it's just out of this world. I don't think there's any finer views than these anywhere in the world.
You can travel this line and never see at any two occasions just looking the same. They always find something new, something different.
It's beautiful in the summer, and of course in the winter it's very cold.
In 1919, it was very cold indeed. The railway then was not yet 50 years old. Cars were few and far between, and winter and summer, this was still the main trunk route between the Hebrides and the east coast of Scotland. It wasn't until 1848 that a track was laid north to Perth. In the next 20 years, there was a gradual expansion. New lines threaded their way through the comparatively gentle landscape of the eastern seaboard. But the moors and glens west of Dingwall weren't tackled until 1868, when steam came to places with names that have stirred strong men to verse. Achterneed, Achnasheen, Achtershillach, Atterdale, Strome Ferry. But not until 1897 did the railway reach the open sea. This is the end of the line, 82¼ miles from Inverness, the pierhead at Kyle of Lochalsh. Not very long ago, this was a busy steamer terminal with a ferry service to the outer isles, and of course, the railway was a vital link. When the line opened, what they used to call swift steamers waited here to take passengers to Skye and Rasay and to the Isle of Lewis. Trains and boats were carefully synchronized, and for 50 years and through 2 wars, Kyle was a bustling and vital railhead. But in 1973, the steamer from Stornoway was replaced by a car ferry and rerouted north to Ullapool. The roads had claimed another victory over rail. In its heyday, the line carried thousands of wagon loads of cattle and sheep to Dingwall market. But lorries have taken this lucrative trade, and now the pens are empty, rusting away from lack of use. Whichever way you look, there's not much left to see. Ever since Beeching tipped the line for closure in 1963, an air of doom has hung over it. It's been difficult to keep existing freight contracts and impossible to attract worthwhile new ones. When you see the small amount of freight carried on the early morning goods train from Inverness, you can understand why the line runs at a loss. A few churns of milk, a few bags of mail, a load that never pays for the cost of running the train. Cabbages and swedes may still come by rail, but the new frozen foods all go by road, direct from the depots in Aberdeen and Inverness to crofters' wives in the west. The Kyle line was laid to carry the produce of the Hebrides south to Edinburgh and London, and the bulk of that trade came from the sea. Men with long memories recall that on one day alone, 11 fish trains left Kyle for Inverness. But the extension of the West Highland Railway to Mellaig tapped a lot of that trade. The Kyle line lost its monopoly in western waters, and a gradual decline in fishing after the First World War meant slimmer profits. The fishing boats using Kyle now can be counted on the fingers. Although they're landed on the pier built by the railway, ironically, these prawns will never go near a train. The fish vans, the cattle lorries pounding out of Kyle along the fast new motor road, emphasize the slowness of the journey by rail. The average speed on the line is still more or less what it was in Edwardian times. An appropriate and a traditional way to transport these seasonal salmon from a sporting estate. But you have to be careful not to catch any fish on Saturday evening. There aren't many trains on a weekday, but in deference to local opinion, no trains at all run west of Dingwall on the Sabbath. The absence of a Sunday service doesn't make the line lose money. It's 10 years now since Dr. Beeching's experts decided that the line was, in financial terms, expendable. You might feel that leaving British Rail to run this ailing branch was rather like inviting an undertaker to nurse a dying man. It's been suggested, uncharitably, unfairly perhaps, that the railwaymen haven't been enterprising enough in looking for new sources of revenue, that they're too hidebound by half. Passenger traffic has actually been increasing in recent summers, but it still costs the taxpayer £3,865 a week to keep the trains running. It's difficult to see how even a financial genius could make a profit running a railway across these empty moors. Achnasheen itself, the modest Clapham junction of the Highlands, was created by the railway. It's here that the 1108 from Kyle will wait for the arrival of the 1036 from Inverness. The line is single track. Achnasheen, the field of rain, is the halfway passing place. But usually there's no need to hurry. Besides being a passing place, Achnasheen is the railhead for the whole hinterland of Torridon, Gairloch and Wester Ross. In the days of steam, this was where the engines were watered. Now the liquid is dispersed in smaller quantities by the landlord of the station hotel.
We feel very strongly about it, even apart from the social and financial aspect. We feel that it's part of Highland life. A lot of people in these villages couldn't get out, they couldn't get shopping without the line. When they run a special from here to Aberdeen for shopping, it's packed always. When they ran a special some time ago, even in very bad weather, from Euston right up to Kyle, it was packed. And it's just part of things here.
Perhaps this is the most important role left to the line, to be a sustaining link, an umbilical communication cord with the outside world. But of course the alternative is always there, waiting in the wings, the bus, which could, theoretically, take you anywhere you wanted. And if the line were to close, there are two distinct problems. There's one in summer and there's one in winter. In summer, this area is becoming increasingly full of tourists, many of them dragging enormous caravans behind them. And these roads, as you can see, are extremely narrow. They've got passing places, and a lot of people who come up here don't realize that these passing places are also to permit overtaking. So very often what you see is a whole string of traffic, lorries, cars, buses, all behind perhaps one small mini which is going at about 15 miles an hour, while the visitors naturally enjoy these incredible views. The second problem is in the winter. Half the road between Dingwall and Kyle is narrow single track. £3 million, they reckon, to bring it up to standard, and lots more money to keep it open in the winter. This, at the moment, is the only alternative to the train. Roads on which travel sometimes becomes impossible. Black ice, snowdrifts, blizzards are commonplace. For the very young and the very old, this could be a sometimes frightening way to travel. Imagine waiting by the roadside for a bus in weather like this. And would the bus be able to get through? The train for many communities is an institution. It's been there ever since they can remember. The children use it to go to school. Every Monday morning, the Robertson girls, weekend homework done, wait on the platform at Achnaschellach for the train to Dingwall. Compared with the millions who commute to work by train in other parts of Britain, the scattered handful who wait on Highland platforms may seem expendable. But psychologically, the arrival of the train, its physical presence in these remote regions, cannot be measured in terms of pounds and pence. The people living along the line see it as a social service, a shopping train, a train for school. It's part of their way of life. In the 30s, the old LMS proudly gave their train a name, the Hebridean. Its famous observation coach was written off by British Rail as being not worth the cost of repairing. The coach has nostalgic memories for many people, not least the man who used to deliver the running commentary, Inspector Jack Rennie.
Well, I had one in particular when I was working the observation car some years ago. We were coming back from Kyle, that's a 5:50 train from Kyle, and the train broke down at Glencairn Halt. Now, we had to get assistance, so it meant one of us having to cross the River Carron by stepping stones to get up to Glencairn Lodge to see the owner, to see if he'd give us the use of his telephone. I got across all right on the stepping stones, and we got the message through to Inverness. But on the way back, I slipped and fell into the river, and I had to talk to the people in the observation car soaking wet. I had to dry my shoes on top of the tea boiler.
You won't get any tea on the train today. All the amenities have been withdrawn. Staff has been cut to a minimum, and the line gives every sign of running down to a quiet and silent demise. But even in its terminal hours, the line seems to act like a magnet for those seeking a more fundamental way of life. It runs through a part of the Highlands which remains relatively undisturbed. These glens are refreshingly ungeared to the demands of industry. This is Peter Roy, a university graduate, biochemist, a man born to life in the town. Some might say he's opted out. He thinks he's opted in to something more worthwhile. Besides cutting his own peats, there's a vegetable garden and pocket money to be made from woodwork. It all seems a long way from Peter's last job, teaching in a London comprehensive.
I was very keen and quite competent at science, and really suddenly I just threw it all in. I felt it was meaningless to me. It was a modern religion. I didn't see any point in doing what I was doing. And the prevalent attitudes in society to science, I think, a parallel can be drawn with the Middle Ages and religion in some ways. And I just lost interest, and I just decided that I had to find a way of both enjoying work and making money.
To get a roof over his head, Peter applied and got a job as keeper of the crossing at Balnacra.
I'm a light sleeper, and I usually hear the buzzer and can get up pretty quickly and put my clothes on. But one morning, it was in winter, it was pitch black. There was no light, and there was no electricity here at that time. I just had to bumble my way across the room to the phone, which I found, answer it. Would you do the gates? I said, yes, okay. And then, of course, searched around as best I could for matches or some source of light. None. So in the end, I just had to go out there. It was a wet and cold morning, and open the gates completely naked.
The most spectacular part of the line is the western stretch, winding along the shores of Loch Carron. It was here in the winter of 1970 that a landslide closed the line for 4 months. It was then that regular passengers had a foretaste of winter conditions without their rail link. A vast sum of money was spent in building an avalanche shelter to carry both the railway line and the road, which may soon usurp it. So far, there have been no further incidents. One of the problems about building a railway in the Highlands is the enormous amount of rock you've got to cut through. And that's why the original Kyle line ended not at Kyle, but at Strome Ferry. And this last 10.5 miles took something like 4 years to build, almost as long as the entire line from Dingwall to Strome Ferry. It cost £250,000. They built 31 cuttings and 29 bridges. And they took, out of this cutting alone, something like 30,000 cubic yards. The thought of abandoning this hard-won line, tearing up the track because it no longer makes money, has roused the anger of Highlanders. They point to the large sums that are spent subsidizing city commuters and wonder why they shouldn't continue to enjoy their modest subsidy too. Some suggest that the line could be put into private hands and run as a light railway. Others would like to see it improved to provide a faster service. Just maintaining the line in a safe condition for the few trains left running is a full-time job for Tommy Mackay of Atterdale. He's walked the whole length of the track more times than his feet care to recall.
No, whoa. Take her to you a wee bit.
Much of the track was laid on soft, yielding peat. It had to be constantly realigned. First of all, the rail is jacked up to its proper height. A cup or two of stone chips is shoveled underneath the sleeper, and surprisingly, this do-it-yourself technique works wonders on this impermanent way. High summer is the one time of the year when the line recaptures the bustle and activity of the pre-motor age. Then trains often arrive at Kyle, packed to the windows with visitors from all over the world. Holiday is in the air. But for the men who work the line, these are uncertain times. Some of the younger ones with no ties could leave the area altogether, go and work in Glasgow or further south. But older men like Donald McLean have no wish to leave. He's been doing this job for 35 years, and he likes it. His family have their roots deep in the countryside. This is a crofting community, and at haymaking time, everybody lends a hand, train drivers too. These fields on the shores of Loch Carron have recently acquired a new significance. The waters of the loch are deep, deep enough to build one of those multi-million-pound concrete platforms which the oilmen need to exploit the untapped wealth of the seabed. This has become quite a famous name, and the rich rewards held out by the oilmen has split Drumbuie down the middle. The coastline is owned by the National Trust for Scotland. It was bequeathed to them to be maintained and preserved for all time. It's a quiet and undisturbed place, a place where perhaps time has stood still, and none the worse for that. There are those who believe that it would be wrong to reject the offer of employment that the construction work would bring. On the other hand, there are those who claim that the best jobs would go to incomers, and in terms of social upheaval, the immediate benefits of turning the shores of the loch into an industrial complex would never compensate for the destruction of the crofting way of life. Although the construction companies give promises that they'll try and restore the site when they pack up and go, Many believe that the final harvest that the people of Drumbuie will reap will be meager in comparison with what they stand to lose. When they first built this pier and laid the track 70 years ago, everything seemed solid and certain. But for 10 years now, Kyle of Lochalsh, which didn't exist before the railway, has been acutely uncertain of its future. The grant to keep the line open has been extended again and again. But no one knows when the last passenger train will run or when the mail will take to the already overcrowded roads. How does the railway brochure run? This has been a magnificent journey on a line which has crossed the difficult terrain of a dramatically beautiful county, a journey through scenic grandeur unique in Britain. No one would disagree with that. Tata train. If ever we finally do say goodbye to the line, it will be a sad day for Kyle. It'll become just a crossroads, a place to get a cup of tea or buy a picnic perhaps, something you pass through on the way to the ferry. Already it has a seasonal aspect. It's a place to dump your litter on the road to the Isles. Every year, the number of cars passing through Kyle increases. Whatever happens, more and more visitors will want to cross over to Skye and beyond. Tourism is the great boom industry in these parts. And although the trains don't run on Sundays, the ferries do, and they're packed. People who desperately want to keep the rail link to the west have clutched at straws. The Navy's new torpedo testing range, maybe that would save the line, or the coming of oil. But in the end, it may well be a shortage of oil that saves the day. If the world fuel famine grows, there'll be a greater reliance on all kinds of public transport. Then the Kyle line could assume a new and unexpected importance. That's if it's still there.